Hey all, and a very warm welcome, Tara. It is so exciting to see you here. Uh,
Hey.
Someone, who is bringing always sparkle to the event, someone who is a technology expert, someone who is a nurturer, carer, and giver as a community person. It is super thrilling to have you here. And before I confuse audience, I would really want you to share who you truly are, and then probably we'll progress on your session.
Sure. Well, my name is Tara. I am the technical community specialist for Provar. And I have been, well, now I'm a recovering automation developer. I've been in test automation and manual testing and all of that testing space for the last 10 years or so. Before I moved over into community building, and now I really enjoy sharing the knowledge that I have and advocating for testers. So I love to do events like this. And I did actually bring slides for today, so hopefully that'll give you something to focus on other than me and my sparkle.
Absolutely. No, but then, sparkle and charm will always be there. So without further delay, first thing we wanted to understand, and then I'll pass on the mic to you. What is this session all about?
So becoming the hero of your sprint, especially as a QA, we're often kind of the afterthought and the bad guy on occasion. Becoming the hero of your sprint is about that shift left mentality and how you can work with your teams and kind of insert yourself earlier into the process, and how important it is to be there and share your knowledge with everybody.
Beautiful. So without, taking any more of your time, over to you, and you can start with your presentation.
Sure. All right. Slide time. All right. Well, as I was saying, I'm a recovering automation developer. I've been in the software industry for 10 years, but I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for 20. That was all before I became a community builder. That was really important to me because I'd just gotten really burned out. Like I said, I think I spent a lot of time being told that I was the bad guy and that why are you so mean? And, oh, this was an afterthought. Can you get this done the very last day of the sprint? And I needed something else to do. And I wanted to be able to advocate for the things that I wish I had seen in testing. So this other character on the screen here, that is my character, Nicola, that I play in D&D. I know it sounds really strange to bring those things together. But as I played D&D for so long, I realized that I was seeing a lot of crossover between the two. So I hope I can share that a little bit with you guys today. Here's a list of the things that I hope we can talk about today. As I've been playing this character for, well, twice as long as I've been testing, I had to kind of learn how to be her and what decisions she would make. And I think that plays into when you're advocating for your users. So started drawing some parallels and wanted to apply that as a way to help me optimize my team and share diversity to help shape that quality so we don't end up with that bias that we were just talking about. And then how to use your team just to try to defeat those bugs. So what does Dungeons and Dragons have to do with software development? Well, first, let's take a look at what Dungeons and Dragons is, right? I don't know how many of you have actually played Dungeons and Dragons before. It is a tabletop game, meaning it can completely be played with just paper, pencil, the rule book, and then a set of dice. It's a world where, oh no, you can see my speakers. Don't read those. We'll fix that. It's all good. Thank you for letting me know, though.
I thought that's actually planned. So thanks.
Oh no, don't read those. That's a hot mess.
Yeah.
That's a hot mess. Is that better? Can you just see slides now?
Yep.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, good. I'll keep my notes to myself.
Awesome.
So it's an open world where you just get to tell a story. And I think that's a lot like building software, right? Where you're creating this story for your user to go through, an experience where they can get something accomplished. I've been a fan of the game for years. You've seen it pop up in pop culture. So if you've watched Stranger Things on Netflix, huge hit. Of course, that whole show is about Dungeons and Dragons. And then any other games that pop up in pop culture like Pokemon and World of Warcraft, those are all based on this old tabletop game. So how do they relate? Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, an adventuring party is just a group of people gathered from different backgrounds with that skill set trying to accomplish a goal. Same thing with DevOps, just a group of people that have gathered together, different skill sets trying to accomplish a goal. Each character and each team member is unique. You have a backstory and skill sets that belong just to you. So how do we use that to optimize our team performance and our culture? Well, most of the time we don't get to pick our teams, but we can choose how we interact with them. In D&D, teams are rarely, if ever, homogenous, right? You get to see characters from all walks of life, backgrounds, all locked together in that quest. It might be a little bit more extreme in Dungeons and Dragons because I can't remember the last time I saw a purple team member, or one that's from the 9 Circles of Hell, which is where Nikala is from. But I can think of a few team members that come to mind, right? So how many people here have worked with a team member that just seemed like they were completely evil and out to get you, right? Or because we're in QA, it's usually considered us. We're the evil person that's out to get the rest of the team, right? And who knows, maybe you are, maybe that team member was, but maybe you just have different alignments, right? Because alignment is in the eye of the beholder. It's rare that villains think that they're a villain or are actually trying to be a bad guy. So how do you know where you fit in? Are you the type that follows the rules no matter what, right? That's that lawful side. Are you the type that thinks that the ends justify the means? That's that chaotic side. Do you fight for truth and justice? That's that good row. Or do you want to sit back and just watch it all burn? That's that bottom layer of evil. It's human nature to try to put people in these tidy little boxes. And I'm sure most of you have probably seen grids like this before, but I like to think of alignment more as a sliding scale. Something like this. So we think of characters as landmarks, right? Captain America always follows the rules and all of his orders just for the good of others, sometimes to a fault. But in the Marvel Universe, did he stay that way? The Joker, he admitted to being destructive and chaotic just for the pure joy of watching a train wreck, but he also felt that he was bringing necessary balance to Batman. So where do you fit in? Where does your favorite characters fit in? Where does your project manager fit in? Right? Let me tell you a story about D&D. I like to call it the story of the greedy wizard. This was a person who took all of the loot, wouldn't share resources, hid information from the rest of the party. Sometimes they even got us into trouble with the different communities that we were in. We all thought he was just kind of mean, right? What we didn't know until much later was that this person was constantly paying blackmail money to keep his daughter safe. The backstory was the reason that this highly educated wizard had joined an adventuring party, right? Upon finding that out, his perceived alignment, there we go, went from somewhere in this evil chaotic range down in the bottom corner, up to kind of good and predictable, because who wouldn't protect their kid no matter what they had to do? As a party, we got to rally and we started pooling our resources, and then eventually we derailed the campaign by taking out the bad guy. But in the dev side of the world, I once worked for this company that was taking their really old desktop application that was built back in the early 90s and converting it to a web-based application. We had a dev team that was always rude, never wanted to explain their code, took bugs as a personal insult, and was just confrontational. They had been on this product for years, and they were definitely the expert. We needed them. But come to find out that the new they thought and had told been told that the new software would be replacing everything that their team had been working on for years, and that they might be losing people on their team because of this new software. In both cases, the hard to deal with team member wasn't actually out to get us, right? They were just dealing with something that felt really unjust. That's the power of storytelling, right? Misconceptions can lead to issues, both in teams and in our software structure. And most of the time, it's the person that's most disagreeable has the most to lose and is the most afraid of losing things that they find dear to them. I challenge you guys to open up a little bit, rewrite that story, and make the person on your team that's difficult the hero. Ask them the things that are important to them. What are they afraid of losing? What are we looking for in this? When you open up about your own story, then your team can understand you a little bit better. But along with different alignments and personality types, we have a cast of characters assembled in both D&D and DevOps that are from a variety of archetypes. Right? DevOps team archetypes are the project managers, your business analysts. Maybe you have, hopefully you have a tester and maybe a designer. Each person has a skill set that they're the most proficient at, right? One person on your team might be a database guru. The other person is just insanely good at JavaScript. These archetypes in D&D aren't so different. Each character has a set of traits that they rely on to hone their skills, and a set of skills that make them really good at what they do. Each type of character in D&D has a favored weapon, armor, environments that give them bonuses. But when I think about it in DevOps terms, I think of all my team members that have their favorite tools, their favorite programming languages, even the office environment that bolsters their strengths. My favorite thing about D&D is that all these personalities and motivations can be actively involved in creating a story. Right? After rolling for initiative, everyone goes around in a turn and explains what their character's doing. Each turn you have to decide what actions to take, where to move, how to react, and each turn builds the story, creating an epic battle or an intense interrogation. One of the best ways to build on the story is a trick from improv. It's the yes and. That helps you take whatever's happening and tack onto that train of thought. So if I say, my bard tries to seduce the guard, right? Then I might say, yeah, and I'll be his wingman. If my devs tell me they're working on a feature, then I, as a QA, might say, sure, yeah, and I'll have those test cases ready for you. There are a couple of actions in D&D and DevOps that I take fairly often. One is the ready action, right? It works kind of like an if-then statement. If the goblin steps on a trapdoor, then I'll pull the lever. It delays my action until something happens. Then you have to roll the dice, live with the consequences. This is how I view stand-ups, right? You're taking your turn in battle. Sometimes that means you're attacking the problem. Sometimes it means you have to assist somebody else who's attacking. As QA, I have to ready those tests and be ready to test when I'm needed. I can still move forward on automation or take bonus actions and provide some use cases for a teammate. And some days are better than others, right? The dice are in your favor. Some days, everything that could go wrong does. D&D is not about blame though, unless you're blaming your dice. That's why they go to jail. Instead, you succeed or fail as a team. It's about working together and using your skills to the best of your ability to create a great story. In your DevOps teams, if a member is struggling, you can help by giving a pep talk, leading advice, working on problem together. DevOps is about your team using skills to the best of their ability to create a great piece of software. We have to actively engage by planning and creating strategy for everything to run smoothly. And it doesn't have to mean just meetings, though. We spend way too much time in meetings already. Try pair programming or tag teaming something. An Atlassian study showed that half of respondents say meetings are their #1 time waster. And I think most of us would probably agree. It's often only one person that speaks up, or everyone's zoned out on a Zoom meeting doing whatever else they're doing. That same study showed that 73% of people actually admitted to doing other things in meetings, anything from checking their email and household chores to just sitting and playing video games. I think that one of the reasons that people dread a 30-minute meeting, but will gladly sit down and play 8 hours of gaming, is the chance to actively participate and be heard. So what I like to do when my meetings stall out and everybody gets a little like low in morale is I bring my dice to the meeting and everybody has to roll for initiative. And then that's the order that we go in. And everybody gets to build on top of what's happening. No one becomes uncomfortable from popcorn style meetings where they don't know when their turn is, and everybody has a chance to kind of process what's happening before they speak. Plus it gets a little competitive to see who gets to go next. This can also help plan the rate that a person or a team can move through a sprint. D&D and character movements, nobody moves at the same rate, right? A little 3-foot tall character does not move the same speed as a 7-foot tall character. Their strides will never be the same. And it's the same with your teams, right? Not every team might have the same capacity or experience. How many times have we heard said that testing is the bottleneck before release? But often there's only one tester, 4, 5, 6 developers, and testing doesn't begin until they say, okay, I'm ready. That means that QA is usually the party member with the slowest movement. Teams can't always add more testers, and the team's velocity affects budget, users, and your overall quality. So what do we do to not sacrifice that quality? Well, certain testing tasks take up a ton of time. Right? Out of a 2-week sprint, almost 2 days are just setting up a test environment. Data, mocks, 2 to 3 days of that, just analyzing what came out of it. And if you've got to handle manual tests too, that might be another 3 or 4 days. Automation can help speed things up, but keeping the tester moving forward and then taking some of the testing load. But according to GatePoint's 2022 State of Testing Automation Report, only 66% of respondents say that they automate less than half of their tests. Right? We just don't have time to do it. It's a huge time sink, and things are rolling so fast. In fact, releases are happening more and more frequently. That allows defects to slip through more often. Low-code tools like Probar make it easy and intuitive to add automated tests, no matter what your job title, creating an opportunity for QA leaders to get developers and product owners and BAs all on board to help create tests. By planning what to automate and what might need the manual attention, testing can be focused and implemented earlier in development. So when it comes down to those last hours before your release, you can pair and mob and increase testing speeds that way to get more sets of eyes looking for any issues. Like in every turn in D&D, right? Each new sprint is a chance to move forward. So what's the key takeaway? Well, open lines of communication can foster better cooperation and speed up those testing cycles. So what else do we do to ensure good communication? Well, this is the part I'm the most passionate about. Making sure all the voices on your team are present and heard. One of the easiest ways to shift your testing left is to have a tester in the conversation earlier. So if that's you, speak up. Say that you're willing to help out. We all have those skills and stats that we bring to the table, so volunteer yours. In fact, those skills and stats are unique to you, but real life people, those skills aren't attached to dice and numeric values like the 6 quantifiable D&D stats, but they can help us see each other a little bit better. I like to remember the stats using the tomato theory. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but every character gets bonuses on these stats based on their class, race, how fast you've leveled up. And when you talk about stats, it's easy to see what's beneficial in fighting. Maybe bad guys are dungeon crawling for loot, right? Strength makes sense. Wisdom in battle, that's important. But what about during software development testing? Well, charisma could be important to help direct the conversation. And you need some good constitution to slog through hours of regression tests. But just because you have a low score on something doesn't mean you can't succeed at something. A high score doesn't guarantee you success. Have you ever seen somebody that's like super strong that can't open a pickle jar, and then like the person you wouldn't expect walks up, like taps it on the counter and pops it right open? Just using your different skills in a different way. And we never have to do anything alone. Ask for help. I like to remember that in Dungeons and Dragons, you never go into battle with just a group of healers. Could they get the job done? Sure. But how long would it take? And how many resources would it cost them? And what would the outcome possibly be? You could have a full stack developer succeed, just a team of full stack developers, but would it cost them more money, or would they have more bugs or UX issues? So it's the diversity that really lends us the quality that we're looking for. And just like our D&D counterparts, each one of us has a unique backstory that contains all the things that make you you. So that's why we need the different specialties and experiences. It's okay to not know something or not be the best at it because you have your whole team to lean on. But do have confidence in the things that you do know how to do, and remember what makes you the most qualified to be in the position that you're in. When I first entered the tech space, I had absolutely no experience as a developer or tester to draw on, but I had spent many, many years processing insurance claims. It was that experience that got me my first contracting gig, and that was at an insurance company. I had special insight because I'd actually been one of their users on the other side of it. As you can imagine, when I came in and said, let me tell you all the things that are wrong with it that I've noticed as I use this every day, those conversations did not go smoothly at all. It's natural to be defensive and proud of your work. And I think that's why testers get painted as the bad guy. It goes back to that alignment conversation, right? QA, we're trying to be helpful. I've never met a single tester that sits at their computer and like rubs their hands together and cackles evilly while they log bugs. And it's the conversations where we've had to defend bugs that are the absolute worst. Right? Regardless of if it's me or if it was my character Nikala, whenever teams encounter big decisions and big issues, we have to struggle through that civil discourse. It becomes apparent that characters and team members alike have varying viewpoints, and that can take effort to reconcile. Our experiences simply make us see things differently. Whether we're debating game mechanics or the root cause of an event, the more often we have those discussions, the more effective we work as a team. Practice makes perfect. And a diverse group of people also performs better. In 2014, a report for the Scientific American, Columbia professor Catherine W. Phillips found that the act of interacting with a diverse group improves performance because it forces group members to prepare, to anticipate alternative viewpoints, and to expect that reaching consensus is going to take effort. It's something that D&D has actually been known for and is being used by psychologists and youth programs to foster those exact skills. And in a world of fantasy, you can be as creative as you want. There's no limits based on race, gender, economics, religion, and it's perfectly logical to have a team member that comes from a different plane of existence, like my purple girl. Which is why it's important to notice that we all have our blind spots, things that would never cross our mind because it's never impacted us before. To avoid writing bias into our software, it takes some diversity to overcome that problem too. At my alma mater, they recently built an entirely new building. And when they were done, they realized that all the handicap doors were installed the wrong way, and it was actually harder for wheelchair access. They didn't have anybody that was disabled on their team. You've heard of the issues with facial recognition and darker skin tones. And sometimes even my laptop doesn't recognize me if I'm not wearing makeup. Obviously, these things were not tested on a diverse group of people with a diverse group of testers. And if we can ensure that different experiences and expertise are part of the conversation and make sure that all of our parties are speaking up, it's logical then to draw on the experience of others when we're faced with the challenge. If you find a scroll that looks like it's an Elvis, you ask the elf. So if you want to figure out the best way to architect a JSON response, ask the front-end dev who's going to be using it. And always keep in mind accessibility goals, especially while you're testing. Like, have you guys seen the alt text for the James Webb Telescope images? They are, oh, they're goals. I want to be on that testing team. So applying those concepts to DevOps is really easy. All you have to do is look around on your team and see if there's a voice missing. Was there somebody on your team that would have really been a good voice to have at this meeting? See if they're free and bring them in. And of course, it's usually us QA that's missing from those conversations. At least that's been my experience. So volunteer, say, hey, I've already written up some of these test cases. I'd love to discuss them with you. Can I come to your next meeting? Or if you're going to be talking about this architecture, I would love to know what you're thinking about so I can plan some tests. Right? And if you need a second set of eyes on something, instead of asking the person who looks and thinks like you, try asking the person that you typically disagree with. It's those times that we have to explain our reasoning and logic that we have to see the flaw in our own thinking. It's kind of like having a rubber duck that talks back, right? As developers and QA, the quicker we can give ourselves some time to catch something, the more time we actually get back. And that helps shift everything left as well. But regardless of how well we've planned and how well we work together, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, right? We are actually humans, so errors happen, challenges come up. And those challenges in software development are usually, from what I see, is the unforeseen bugs, right? Those tiny little glitches in logic or that race event that just makes you question your life choices. My D&D party spent months on different adventures, and no matter where we were in the imaginary continent, no matter what task we were undertaking, there was always this undead guy just around the corner ready to attack. So imagine every session, regardless of what goal you're going after, running into this guy or hordes of them, right? It took us a really long time to admit that they had to be coming from somewhere. And it ended up taking the entire team investigating, exploring different places, gathering information to find the root cause of our problems. We'd made enemies of a necromancer who was now set on our destruction, and he was sending these guys at every turn. Does that feel familiar to you guys? I think it sounds a lot like that one bug that keeps popping up again and again, even when you're not working anywhere near it, right? You log the bug, you slay the bug, you move on victoriously, and then the next sprint, there he is again. Sometimes that bug is just a symptom of a different problem, and you have to do the investigations. So this is a perfect time to mob the problem. Get into the same room or a Zoom call and start exploring the software together. Get a dev combing through code and one producing QA steps. Put breakpoints everywhere, right? As many new eyes on the problem as you can get to bring morsels of information and insight to add to your root cause. Working together, we get a full picture and all of the pattern. This can help narrow down search, and then you can find the necromancer in your code, causing that reoccurring bug, take down the problem, and all in much less time than you can do it by yourself. By working together earlier in that process, we can shift left, relying on each other's skill sets and opening those lines of communication. It didn't matter if we were slaying a necromancer or squashing a recurring bug. There's always great rejoicing when everything goes smoothly, right? And it's my experience that when you have a really good sprint, the next few sprints are going to be pretty good too. The experience might even leave you with a new skill or a new tool for your toolbox. And this is the easiest way and lowest effort to grow and evolve your personal character too. And not just your D&D character who might get extra experience for the encounter, but as software developers, there's not always time for Udemy or Coursera courses or reading through Stack Overflow to find an answer to a problem. You have resources on your team. And one of the most significant ways of being a better partner in your team is investing time in yourself. At the D&D table, you get experience and you can grow your character. You level up, you use experience points and invest them in new skills. My rogue, who is very clumsy, never learned to stealth and disarm traps, but she did learn to multi-class. That means I got to pick up skills from the wizard class. In the storyline, our wizard took pity on me being awful rogue and taught me new skills, right? It took leveling up and fighting and learning new things, but eventually I had a set of skills that served my character really well. It worked exactly the same way in the software world. As a test automation engineer, I get to learn all sorts of things, how changing the motor size of can in fact impact the airflow of a ventilation fan, right? Why would you know that as a QA specialist? You don't, it's just domain knowledge. But more often than not, it meant learning like a new tool or a new tech stack, or even a new programming language. Great example is when I first moved into from manual testing to automated testing. I hadn't coded in that language before, but I knew how the test needed to be set up. So a developer and I sat down, built the framework together, and made it easy to add to and maintain. So then something that felt so out of reach was something that I could do practically in my sleep because my teammate helped me gain those skills. So when we don't have the skills or resources we need on our team, and if your immediate team is unable to help, there are other places that you can turn to, right? And this is where the power of community really shines. So I might be a little bit biased. But joining a community can give you just a plethora of resources and an even more diverse cast of characters to lean on for their expertise. So there's Slack and Discord communities for a variety of interests and skills. And of course, I'm not a huge social media fan, but I had to change the way that I use social media to make it work for me. So I ended up starting to follow all of my favorite experts on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I have absolutely fallen in love with Twitter Spaces. It's a nice little interactive podcast. It's brilliant, highly recommend. So go ahead, join that meetup group. We need friends and colleagues that don't look and think like us to help expand our minds and show us all the things that we would never be exposed to otherwise. For devs, don't discount joining testing communities. And I hope QA members would join dev communities too, even if you've never coded a single line in your life. Sometimes it's about gaining that little extra bit of experience before you fight the big bad guy. And slaying the big bad guy is a wonderful feeling. Plus, you usually get a reward, right? Experience, gold, treasure. It's not so easy in the real world. Often the appreciation of a job well done goes unsaid, and you just slog on to the next release. So take your time to reward your team with their own version of golden treasures. It's not always about a promotion or a salary increase either. Send thank you notes or bring donuts to the next meeting. In a 2-year study from Deloitte, 3/4 of professionals said a simple thank you is all it takes to make them feel recognized. And 41% of those people said they wanted more recognition from their immediate peers. Now, and according to Gallup, just last year, 75% of those who say their team received praise also strongly agree that they have a feeling that what they're doing at work is valuable and useful and gives them a sense of purpose. I think that's a pretty big deal. So when you feel connected and you have that purpose, then each sprint is a little bit more like a victory instead of a stressful all-nighter that you just need to get through to meet a deadline. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in work and fast delivery cycles to make sure you set aside a little bit of time to invest in your skills, engage in social media more, and say thank you to all the people that help you grow. So I know that was a lot of information, and I kind of went quickly because I had more information than I had time slot. So here's a few things that you can do to help you become the hero of your next sprint. That's it. I know now that I'm looking at chat, there's a ton of stuff in there and I haven't been looking at it. So questions.
So, I'm not sure if you should be disappointed or you should be happy, but more than questions, there are appreciation. Everyone is like it. And Tara, you deceived us. This is no talk. This is no session. This is a brilliant game.